Hi there. I hope you're having a fantastic day, fantastic week. As always, today's topic is a really fun topic that I promise you, as you listen to the content and as you start to really take a step back and think about it, you're really going to enjoy this exercise and you're going to start to see the fruits of your labor for time and time to come. So the topic for today is all about creating either a painted picture, as it used to be called, or a vivid vision. Now, I'm going to give all the credit to a gentleman named Cameron Herold, and he used to run as the chief operating officer a company called 1-800-GOT-JUNK. So that company I think they grew from, $5 million to like 150 million when he was there. And I'm sure they're probably 10x that even now. But I heard him speak many, many, many years ago, and he was talking about this concept of a painted picture. And he has since went on to kind of rename it to a vivid vision. So I guess you can use those interchangeably. But what this is a picture of what does life look like at your business, at your center, 3 years from today. And I used to never believe in this stuff. Like, oh, why do I need to sit down and write this stuff out? Why does it matter? And it's a similar thing with culture and core values that I never much earlier in my career, I didn't put any emphasis on it. So one of my first companies way back when was called Taz Solutions. And I made up all these like core values and wanted to have a fun culture and things like that. But we had a culture surely by default rather than by design. And I've come to realize that culture is another core aspect to having a successful business that not only is prosperous, but a business that serves you emotionally as well. And you get great fulfillment. This vivid vision is a picture from your mind. That's the key. Far too often, and this happens with project management or tasks. I'll give you a perfect example. You delegate something out and you say, okay, I want you to, redo the classroom and make this section more fun or make this section a little bit more of the STEM area. You give a few directions. In your mind, you're thinking one thing and you're imagining it. And, oh my gosh, it's going to look so amazing. And this is what I'm envisioning. You give a few directions to your team and maybe a week goes by and you're like, is this it? Well, yeah, we're done. And there's a disconnect in your mind. You had one vision in your mind. You had one painted picture of what the end result was going to look like. But you didn't communicate that. You didn't give all of the vivid details. You didn't write it down or convey it as if it had already happened. So you didn't say, in 2 weeks, we just did a redesign of our toddler room. And the colors are now bright and welcoming. So we have a fresh coat of paint. We ordered a bunch of brand new supplies. And it made the space look brighter and more welcoming. I'm so happy that I did this. That was what was in your head and what you were envisioning. And if you phrase it like that, not just for projects, but for the entire vision of your company, magical things are going to start to happen. So here's the exercise, and here is your homework as we go through this. You can either write it physically I prefer to do it in Google Docs because, as you're going to hear, I usually will update this once, twice, sometimes 3 times a year, but usually twice a year. And you're going to date it at the top 3 years from today. Now, if you want to make it easy, you can date it. I mean, at December 31st, if you want, you can. There's not necessarily a rhyme or reason, but it's 3 years out at least. It's not 1 year out. It's not 6 months, 2 years. It's 3 years out. 3 years is a long enough time frame to start to see some really great things occur. It's able to give you more of a longer range vision and not be too short-sighted. We typically are thinking that we can get, if you have a more narrow, like, oh, I'm just going to look at what I can do for the rest of this year. You're not going to put some of the bigger things down. So I want it to be a couple years out, but I don't want it to be 20 years out where, I mean, you might not even be in this business in 20 years, or maybe you can't even picture 20 years out. Most people can't. So he's found that 3 years is the optimal amount of time. And you're going to go through and you're going to list out a couple of different sections. So the first part is, I mean, kind of a recap of how things went for the last 3 years. The key here for this entire exercise, there's 2 keys. Number one, everything is written as if it has already happened. Everything is written as if it has already happened. So you might write something like, the last 3 years have been insanely amazing. We opened up 6 more locations. We now employ a staff of 100. Our total capacity is over 1,000. Our wait list has 300 people on it. So you're going to, in this introduction, give a recap of all of the amazing things that happened in the last 3 years. And again, it's 3 years out. It's not your past 3 years. It's what are all the things that are in your mind that you want to start to see coming true over the next 3 years. And I don't want you to limit yourself. It's not designed, this particular document, it's not designed to be the how. It's the why. It's the vision. It's the what. It's not, we added 6 locations and here's exactly how we did it. We did it by these 15 things. This is getting every single thing out of your mind onto paper that you want to see occur in the next 3 years and writing it again as if it has already happened. So introduction. And then I'm going to give you a bunch of the other sections and you can put this in whatever order best suits you. You have to have the introduction. So some of these other sections you may remove or you may want to add. So the first section after the intro can give a few more specifics, not all of the how, but starting to add some other things. So if you're thinking the 6 centers, put some more details. We acquired a 3-center location and we leased out 3 other locations. We built 6 locations from scratch, and each of them took less than half a year. We had them done concurrently, for example. You're going to start to list out some more of those high-level details with a little bit more specifics. But again, not all of the granular details because you're not going to have everything figured out. In future episodes, I'll tell you then what you start to do with this document. But in today's episode, it's getting all of this out of your head. Far too often, as the leader of an organization, leader of a business, head of a family, you don't take the time to not even reflect, but you don't take the time to put it on paper what you really want. I was guilty of this in the past. And then I kept getting mad. Well, why isn't this getting done? Or why is our revenue not grown fast enough? Well, I didn't even put it on paper what I wanted. It was in my head. I want to double the size of the business. Okay, fine. It's not on paper for anyone else to see, which we'll talk about. That's the last part of this. So, introduction. Second part, giving a few more specifics. So you're adding a little bit more granularity to the overview. Not all the details, but just some more of those higher level areas. The rest of these sections that I'll go through, you can put them in whatever order best suits you. First one, team. Who's on your team? How many people do you have? What's the culture like? What are the team members saying? Are you rated a best place to work? Are you scoring a 9.5 out of 10 on happiness that you're measuring every single month? What are they saying? Who are they? Not how did you find all of them or any of that stuff. How many? What's the culture like? What's the vibe at your centers? If you said you want to go to 6 locations, do you have a executive director that oversees the 6 then? What did all of your team look like? All of that stuff listed out as if it had already happened. We hired 36 new people. We had, and I'm again making up numbers here, 10 new teachers, 5 directors, 5 assistant directors, 1 executive director, a chef, a bus driver, a couple of admins. So you're going to list out all those things that are in your head. And I don't want you to continue stopping saying, no, I don't know if that's going to happen. I don't know if, do we really need 10 teachers? I got to go check the ratios. I don't want you to get that specific where you start to second guess anything. Once you start writing, let it flow out. You can edit and modify this as you see fit. Traditionally, as I mentioned, I usually am only editing this twice a year. And again, I'll talk a little bit more about the cadence of, are you sharing this with who, and then when you edit it or when you should edit the stuff. So team. Next one would be your centers. What do they look like? Are they lease spaces from scratch? Colors, technology. You might say we have the latest state-of-the-art technology. Parents can do everything from their cell phone. All of our centers have a bright feel. All of our centers are integrated with nature. I want to see all the different things regarding your facility. We have the best playgrounds out of any center in the area. Each of our locations has a sprinkler area, splash pad. We have, each location is on 5 acres. I mean, whatever those things are that you want to come true, put it on paper with no limits, no financial limits, no, oh my gosh, how are we going to do this? We're landlocked. There's nothing available. We're not going to worry about that today. I need it out of your head on paper so that we can allow others to help you make this happen. So team, then what do your centers look like? Next section, you can expand on a little bit more, but just the overall culture and what are people saying about you? Are you being written up in the news? So not only were you rated a best place to work, but you were featured as the best childcare center in the area, best preschool, best Montessori center. So you might say we're written up on the news constantly. We've had 10 publications just in the last 6 months. We always have media. We're being interviewed by other people that want to learn about our success. So we're able to help other centers. What's the culture? What's the vibe? What's the press? What are people saying about you? Next section, financials. What do the numbers look like? And this one's going to take a fair amount of time. Is each center doing $1 million? How many enrollments is that? How much is going to staff, building, loans, food, curriculum? How much are you profiting at each of the locations? What is your salary? What are you making financially? And I want that to be very specific. And I don't want you to say, well, I'm only paying myself $50,000 a year right now, and I take $10,000 a year out of the business. A, that's not sustainable or enough. B, it's not big enough. It's just not. So you might say, I'm paying myself a salary of $100,000 a year. Each location is spinning off $150,000 in EBITDA. And as a treat, I take 10% out for our family, and we use it for fun things. And then I put the rest in a slush fund to help build for retirement, for example. You got to get specific on the financials, sales, enrollment numbers, profits, go how many full-time, how many part-time, what ages, all of that stuff needs to be on paper. And it doesn't, again, have to be perfect. But if you're thinking that you want 10 classrooms for infants and your team is thinking, we're never going to take on any more infants, it's just going to be the one classroom, that creates that gap. That creates that disconnect. In your mind, you're thinking one thing, they're thinking something completely different. Whatever you envision goes on the sheet of paper. So team, financials, the facilities, culture, what are they saying about you? Some other sections that you can add. What does your role look like? What is your day-to-day? You're the CEO. Are you the executive director at one location because that's what you want to do, not because you have to, but because you want to do it? Are you working 10 hours a week and it's just doing one-to-one meetings with all your key team members and you have everyone in place? What does your day-to-day look like? How much time are you spending in the business? What is your happiness level? What are you getting out of the business? What activities are you going to? Are you only going to you only go to the fun stuff, the parties, the graduations, things like that? And you've empowered each of the directors to run the business of it as if it were their own. And you focus on being that CEO or CFO or COO. Be very, very specific. Now, from there, you can add any other sections that you would like. So we covered the core ones, the financials, your facilities, what does your team look like, your role. You can add some other things. You can add sections about, acquisitions. You can add a section talking about your curriculum. We switched away from this particular place and we hired someone to develop our own curriculum. We added Spanish immersion. We partnered with a martial arts center and we have that. So what are some of any other things that you want to see? You can start to add them as different sections. This is your vision and your business. Do you want to sell the business in 3 years? Do you want to give it to your children? Whatever you want, put it down. And usually, this document can end up being 5 to 10 pages. I would highly encourage you to do it in something that you can edit. So after you get all this stuff down, and it should probably take you half of a day. And what I do is when I wrote it initially, it was half a day, and then I revisited it the next day and I spent another few hours. So probably almost a whole day total initially. I didn't do it in my office. I went and did it somewhere fun where there was no distractions and I had some fun scenery. I personally think better when I have no distractions and there's nature. I live near Niagara Falls. So I think I actually even checked into a hotel so that I had zero distractions and I had a view of the falls. Like that inspired me to literally zone in and write the best stuff ever possible. The last parts of this equation, after you have this done, you have to share it. So who do you share it with? And there's one of two answers. Normally, I want you to share this with anyone that you're going to empower to help you make this happen. So normally it's an internal document. Your team, your leaders, agencies you work with, like ours. But as you're sharing it, you can do one of a few things. The financial piece, you can remove that only to be for you if you do not ever share financials. Some centers, they do not. Maybe you have the financials of the overarching business, but you remove your salary. That's up to you, completely up to you. Now, if you do that, I would encourage you to actually share this with more and more people. And what you're going to find is that the more people you share it with, the more people want to help you make this come true. That's where the magic really starts to happen. You're not going to be able to execute all of this. But if you now have shown your team, this is what I want the next 3 years to look like. And it's already written because I know we're going to make it happen. Already written. Maybe you share it with all your families, your parents. And what you're going to find is they're going to start to look for bits and pieces that they can help with. Oh, did you know that my friend owns this center and they're looking at selling it? Maybe you should talk to them. I remember reading in your document that you're looking for acquisitions. Oh, my friend works at the newspaper. I'm sure they would love to do a story on you. Can I send some referrals your way for great staff? I have some ideas. People are going to start to help you make this come true because everyone wants to just help each other accomplish their dreams. And that's what this is. It is a dream of the future. A dream of the future. So you can share it with whomever you want, but if this does not get shared, it'll help you, but it's not going to help you get to the level that you need in that particular document. You can never accomplish all the things alone. It's never going to happen. The final piece to the equation is updating it on a semi-regular basis. So as you write out 3 years, I personally will update it twice a year, every 6 months. So half the way year and at the end of the year. And I look at what are the things that were supposed to happen this year. Did we change course? Did something change? And it's not that I'm revising down revenue projections or things like that. Those are different documents, but rather things change. Maybe your goal of 6 now is 10. Maybe it was a bad year for acquisitions. So this year you wrote, well, this year we didn't have any acquisitions, but we doubled up the next 2 years. So you can continue to revise it based on the evolvement of your center so that it continues to stay relevant. I don't want it to just sit on the shelf and not evolve. So I recommend twice a year you update it. And then in terms of, again, sharing it, I personally read it every single year at the kickoff time. We do a kickoff across the whole company in January, and I read it to everyone, word for word, so they can see my passion. They can feel it. I remind them several times during the year, make sure you reread this. I quiz them to make sure they know what's in there. They need to help me make this stuff come true. They need to know what's in the document. This document can transform your life. Now, you can also take it a step further and do one on your life. So I have one for my business, and then I have one for my personal home life. What does my home life look like? My relationship with my wife, with my kids? How many vacations are we taking? What does that entertainment aspect look like? What are our home financials? Did we move? Did we buy a bigger house or a different house? I have all those things in there. So I have this same document completely on a personal level as I do on the business level. And I can tell you this has transformed my life. Now, I'd be lying to tell you if every one of the things in here has come true. I've been doing this for about 6 years. If I were to make up a number, probably 25% of it has happened. But I just started looking at this document again before I wanted to come in and do this episode. And I was actually surprised to see many of these things getting checked off. One of them, for example, I just started writing for Entrepreneur Magazine. I wrote that over 3.5, 4 years ago. I'm now writing for Entrepreneur Magazine. I'm so grateful for the opportunity where I can now continue to help thousands and thousands, if not millions of people. That just came true a few months ago. Just came true a few months ago. So you will start to see these things check off, and it'll continue to evolve. If you oblige me and do this, this document could be the most important document that you ever tackle. I hope you've enjoyed today's episode. I wore red because I'm passionate. I changed the background color to red. So excited to hear about your questions, your thoughts as you start to do this. Leave some feedback. I cannot wait to see it, but get out there, make it happen. Look forward to talking to you again soon. Have a great day.